This idiot calls me every day, texts me every day. Please answer my call. Please talk to me. Why won't you talk to me? Because I don't give a fuck about you. Do your thing. Leave me alone.
Submission, punches, kicks, and blood. This is the man who gave it to us. Meet Dana White, the president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Dana White came from a broken to provide us with men and women with broken noses, ribs, legs, and punctured lungs. He is the modern-day Emperor Vespasian, the modern-day Colosseum owner, and he is also on the way to repeating a vicious past. Follow us on this journey as we take you through the humble beginnings of Dana White and how he achieved his massive influence in the world of sports fighting. Subscribe and like the video if you want to become as successful as Dana, and let us know who you want to see next in Who Is.
The double tap does what the he wants!
Early life and personal struggles.
White was born in Manchester, Connecticut to his mother, June, and father, Dana White Sr., on July 28, 1969. After his birth, his family moved, and Dana White spent his early years residing in Ware, Massachusetts. This was the first of many moves that characterized the early life of Dana, and a major cause was his absent father. They would eventually move to Nevada. White grew up with his sister in a home where their parents were absent. His mother was absent because she had to work multiple jobs. His father was absent because booze was much more important than family from his perspective. Dana, when describing his dad, said,
"My dad was an alcoholic and was never around, and when he did show up, you didn't want him around. You know what I mean? He was usually drunk."
Despite his mother working multiple jobs, money was a major problem during Dana's early years. So his mother often needed help from her parents to care for her children. This meant that Dana and his sister went to Levant, Maine every summer despite living in Nevada. Quincy College and UMass Boston College both have one thing in common: Dana White. He went to both colleges but dropped out of both because he hated school. To make ends meet, Dana worked odd jobs. Life was tough, but he had a reason to continue. And what was that thing? Boxing.
Career beginnings and entry into the UFC.
Dana was 17 when he began boxing. He soon became friends with Peter Welch, who was a former Golden Gloves champion. What Dana didn't know at the time was these couple of steps were going to be his key to the door of fame and success. But he soon found out. Through boxing and his relationships with fighters, Dana's path was clear. He knew what he had to do. He made the conscious decision to fully go into the fight business. He would become a professional boxer. However, he decided against it. It was another great decision, and you'll soon see why. Instead of being a professional boxer, Dana began coaching others in boxing. Unfortunately, trouble loomed. The success of his coaching exercises was quickly noticed. However, it was not by investors but by the Irish mob. They demanded that Dana pay them some protection fee. Dana wasn't ready to give anyone an inch in his business, so he refused. Because of this, he had to flee to Las Vegas. On getting to Las Vegas, Dana still had his boxing coach gig and worked alongside Lorenzo Fertitta and his older brother Frank Fertitta. However, Dana wanted to be more than a boxing coach, so he started training jiu-jitsu. With this decision, Dana connected with mixed martial artists Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell and ultimately became their manager. A new path was opened. With his jiu-jitsu training and management career, Dana was thrown headfirst in mixed martial arts. It was a great fit for him, and it wasn't long before he met with Bob Meyrowitz, the owner of Semaphore Entertainment Group, the then parent company of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC. Later, in 2000, Dana learned that Meyrowitz was looking to sell UFC. Having a keen eye for value, Dana contacted his friends Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta to get on the deal and buy the company. The deal was sealed in January 2001, with Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta becoming the owner of UFC for the sum of $2 million. The duo installed Dana as the president of the company.
The transformation of the UFC.
From dropping out of school to being the president of UFC. That's wild. But you see, the challenges of Dana White were just beginning, and the first one didn't waste time biting the new owners of UFC in the rear. After the deal was closed, it became clear that the $2 million price tag was just for the brand name UFC and a busted octagon. Despite this ugly fact, Dana was not ready to give up. You see, he had a dream and refused to have the dream die even when faced with the UFC controversies. You see, when the UFC started, there were no rules. This gave rise to some pretty ugly fights that destroyed the image of the fights in the minds of the public. This meant that no channel was ready to air the UFC fights. The UFC was in a real pickle. They couldn't get enough people to buy their pay-per-view shows. They were getting slammed with lawsuits left and right, and their potential investors felt the business was not profitable. The Fertitta brothers, who owned the company, were starting to regret their investment in the business. They were desperate to find a way out. Then they came up with an idea. It was a crazy one. Their idea was to make a reality TV show and air it on cable TV since pay-per-view is not working out. They shelled out another $10 million to produce it and got Spike TV to air it right after the WWE. The show was called The Ultimate Fighter, and it was all about pitting wannabe fighters against each other for a big UFC contract. It was like Survivor, but with punches, kicks, and submission holds. Getting the show on cable TV was a big deal. It meant way more people could watch it. And guess what? People loved it, especially the moments when Dana White would pop up to stir up some drama. The show was a hit, pulling in over 1 million viewers. But the real magic happened during the first season's finale. The fight between Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner was like something out of a movie. These guys just kept going at it, trading blows like there was no tomorrow. It was so good that it saved the UFC. After that, the UFC and Spike TV, the channel that aired the show, signed up for another season without even bothering with a fancy contract. They just jotted down the terms on a napkin and called it a day.
Successes and controversies.
After this first success, things became. By 2015, with Dana White as the president, the UFC started raking in money. The brand got endorsement after endorsement, and the company became a highly successful business with gross revenue above $600 million. Remember the Fertitta brothers were ready to sell the company long ago? Well, that decision didn't change even after the success of UFC. By 2016, they finally got a $4.25 billion deal to sell the UFC, which the Fertitta brothers gladly took, leaving Dana with 9% of the company and new partners. With Dana White's UFC successes came some controversies, one of the most popular one being the immense pressure from fighters and fans alike to get Dana to pay the fighters more. Always the businessman, Dana replied.
It's never going to happen while I am here, believe me. These guys get paid what they're supposed to get paid. They eat what they kill. They get a percentage of the pay-per-view buys, and the money is spread out amongst all the fighters. If you don't like it, there's a simple solution to this problem. Go start your own MMA organization. No buried entry. Knock yourself out. Pay them whatever you want to pay them. It's been done before. How has it worked out for other guys?
There was another controversy. Dana seemed to enjoy getting into them. Dana White came from a broken home, and he has been accused of domestic violence in his marriage. Things became more intense during the 2022 New Year's Eve party in Mexico, which White and his wife Ann attended. They were filmed engaging in a heated argument that soon got physical when Ann slapped White, and White, in turn, responded by slapping her back. Although they both apologized for their actions, the California Legislative Women's Caucus were furious. They demanded through a letter sent to Ari Emanuel, CEO of Endeavor, the company that owns the UFC, requesting White be removed from his role in the UFC for his action on that night. Did they listen? What do you think? Dana White isn't just about fighting. He's got a big heart, too. In 2010, he dropped $50,000 to help a girl named Tuptim Jadnuliam get a liver transplant. Her dad was one of the coaches at Tiger Muay Thai and MMA in Thailand. Then, in 2011, he tossed $100,000 to fix up his old high school sports equipment. And when tragedy hit Vegas in 2017 with a shooting, he stepped up big time, handing over a whopping $1 million to help the victims and their families. There's more. After a fight in 2019, Khabib Nurmagomedov raised $100,000 for Dustin Poirier's charity. Not one to be outdone, Dana chipped in another $100,000 to Poirier's cause.
Legacy and future.
Dana White is torn between getting into the boxing game and not. White entered the boxing scene when he co-promoted Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor fight, but this was only because McGregor was contracted to the UFC brand. In October 2017, White said at a Wild Card West Boxing Club that he would be getting into boxing, 100%. You see, Dana would love to have some impact on boxing after all. That is where he has his roots, but he states that the sport is corrupted and that it is a major turnoff for him. He says the money in boxing makes things biased and it would be a nightmare for him to join. Is Dana White about boxing? Let us know what you think.
Outro.
Comments about boxing and controversies apart, Dana White had a humble journey to become the president of UFC. He turned around a failing franchise and made it a place people and celebrities want to be associated with. Have you learned anything from White? Will you also pursue your dream as he did? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more.